Hello, folks. Today is Tuesday, January 9th, and today is episode 70 of Block Digest at, right now, block height 503,369. Sorry for missing the weekend episode, folks. That was entirely on me, just working my sleep schedule. Don't blame it on any of the other folks. But I, Shinobi Monkey, take the pleasure today of introducing Mr. Rick, responsible for today's awesome
Hey,
art.
everyone. It's all good. This weekend, man, we're still working out schedule kinks. I think everybody knows that. So, yeah, sorry about that, folks. How are y'all doing today?
Got Mr. JW, our security expert, I guess.
Well, it's good to be here, I guess.
And Janine, the only actual reporter.
What? Hi. Well, to be fair, it's not all on you, Shinobi, because we actually did try to do a live stream. We were planning on doing it for like 45 minutes, considering, you know, we would have to figure out all the screen sharing and stuff. But I think most of the blame is on YouTube because, sorry, Google, but your interface sucks. I can't even find the start live stream button. You think of all things that would be easy to find, it would be the how to start the live stream button. But no, you hide it behind several different pages that I have to click through, and I still didn't find it. So it's mostly Google's fault, Shinobi.
But more importantly, they're diversified. So who cares if you can use the software as long as they have the right ratios?
Oh, yes. Right. I remember their chief business is abandonware.
Yeah, I've always hated that about Google. I mean, it's their fucking UI for everything just sucks. It's always changing and always overcomplicated. But now that I've shifted the blame there, though, I guess two things.
I shifted the blame.
Well, damn it! I was shifting credit for shifting the blame. You just called me out. But
Too much shifting going on. What's going on in this story here?
But as Janine went over the entire Meltdown Spectre incident last time, thought it would be worth kind of just clarifying the situation regarding managing your crypto keys. And I just want to say pretty much to keep it succinct, if you are worried, as long as your keys are encrypted and you don't access them, you should be fine. Like if you're managing any keys that are just keys stored in an encrypted file, if you need to manage them, take them off, do your thing on an air-gapped machine, and only actually take a signed transaction to the correct address back to a networked machine. But as long as you're not accessing them, you're not actually exposing your keys to memory, everything should be fine. And there is a plethora of guides out there as far as managing your keys offline. I know you might not want to use it after we cover this next thing real quick, but Electrum does have pretty in-depth docs on signing and managing keys offline, which kind of slides into the next one.
Well, if you could go back to the CoinDesk article really quick, the reason because normally I don't like citing CoinDesk for anything, but there was a quote. Where is it? It was from. Where is it? Oh my God, where is it? There.
Bishop.
Yeah, Jonas. Where's the quote from Jonas? I think it's under attack vectors. Scroll down. Yeah. Where is it?
Protected memory.
Oh, there. Yeah. So if the protected memory problem is real, then a browser plugin or even a website may access your private keys. Now, that was important because this article was published before the Electrum bug was revealed. But I thought that was interesting because you can see how it's all kind of related to this stuff. Like I don't know whether the bug was discovered because the person who discovered it was Tavis Ormandy. I think that's how you pronounce his name. And I don't know if he said that he just found it because Electrum was part of the Tails, the software that came with Tails Live. And so I'm not sure if he found it because he was specifically looking for stuff related to Meltdown or if, you know, maybe just it was a coincidence. But I thought it was interesting that Jonas made that comment and then this Electrum bug comes out that does something like that.
Yeah, actually, full, I use Electrum, full disclosure, but I have to kind of, this I've been seeing the language that this was just reported the other day, and no, the person who found this pretty much made a pull request for this. I want to say like almost a year ago.
Yes, yeah. Someone else found it first, but then Tavis found it independently a few days ago.
Yeah, I think there was some confusion, or at least the guy that fixed it said there was some confusion for him around how bad it was, and then once it became clear. So I got to give him credit for that, because it does seem like he got out a fix within like 12 hours or something pretty rapid of the second report, or the report where he realized the implications or whatever. So it does suck, but it's cool that he responded so quickly. I think the thing that I wanted to say about both of these sort of issues is that elevation of privilege attacks are pretty common in the software world, and that means that you, like, maybe you're a browser plugin and you get user level access, or a user and you find a way to get administrative level access. I mean, obviously, we're trying to architect the operating systems so that doesn't happen, right? In the browser, so that doesn't happen. But if you know anybody in the computer security world, these are really common things, right? It's not necessarily common for it to impact Bitcoin the way it does, or it's not super common for something like Meltdown Inspector to happen. But attacks where you can get outside of the protected area that you're supposed to be able to operate within, right, where you can kind of break out of that sandbox and get more privilege, is very, very common. And that's why I always tell people, like, if you're going to have a significant amount of Bitcoin, you should have it in cold storage. That means it should just be like, maybe your master seed written on a sheet of paper and multiple copies placed. And if you're going to use some Bitcoin for transactional purposes, make sure it's not so much that you're not afraid to lose it. And that's different for everybody. And if you are kind of afraid to lose it, but you want to be able to use it, then I recommend a hardware wallet. And if it's like $50 and you're just using it for, like, to throw a buck or here or there to a noob and get them interested in Bitcoin, then yeah, sure, throw it in something like Electrum and use it on a general purpose computer. But those are kind of the three categories. So these attacks shouldn't, if you're following that kind of general rubric, these attacks shouldn't really matter to you, because you're not using a general purpose internet connected computer to store significant amounts of Bitcoin. That's the rule you don't want to break.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm definitely going to play armchair specialist here. I'm definitely not a software developer or anything, but I think, like, personally, this kind of illustrates in my mind the need to kind of rethink a little bit how we actually architect wallets, and how, like, different aspects of managing your keys or your Bitcoins are kind of modularized, because something like this kind of shows, like all the wallets in this ecosystem suck, like all of them. Some of them suck a lot less than others, but they all suck. And really, at the end of the day, the safest thing to do is isolate how you are managing your keys and just give that top priority. Like, don't obsess over which wallet you're using, like, for what. Like, just your keys, no matter how you're interacting with them, need to be kept safe. Whether it's a hardware wallet, whether it's keeping them encrypted or keeping them completely offline. It's, at the end of the day, it's not your wallet, it's the keys that you have to worry about.
And I'm not going to say that the wallets suck or don't suck. I think that it is kind of a new industry, right? And so we don't have as much maturity around software wallets as we will in 10 years. But a lot of these vulnerabilities can be in the operating system itself, right? Where the wallet is relying on certain features of the operating system, and then those features break down. And in the case of, like, Meltdown Inspector, it's not even really the operating system's fault, right? It's like a layer even below that. So you could be the most secure software wallet developer in the world, builds on top of the most secure operating system in the world, installed on an Intel chip, and you're screwed, right? So the solution that the sort of software security industry has had for a long time has basically been like smart cards, or what's equivalent to hardware wallet, where if you have something that's secure, it's on a single purpose computer that is that's built specifically to prevent it from being vulnerable, right? Like you can't get your private keys off of a hardware wallet because the circuits just don't exist. Like it's physically impossible to do that. And it's the same idea with a smart card. I don't know if you guys have been in corporate gigs where you've got the it looks like the chip on the back of your debit card now, right? Where you would slide that into a USB drive or a USB port, and then your password is essentially on that. And the hash of the hashing that authenticates you takes place on that special purpose piece of hardware, and you in theory can't physically get the private keys, or in this case your password, off of that device.
Mm-hmm. But that's kind of what I mean, though, is like, you think about managing and keeping your keys safe, and short of a properly air-gapped device or a hardware wallet, your keys are exposed the minute you're using them. Like the minute you actually put them on a device, they're exposed. And that's just something people need to understand and be aware of, and like grasp that it's keeping those keys safe. That's the issue. Because I know a lot of people watching, and all of us have been here for a while, but with a lot of the noobs flying into the space, like I really think that needs to be drilled home. Like it's the keys. And the minute you actually are using those keys on a computer, they're exposed. They are not safe. Like get what you need done, and remove that exposure.
And have different stashes, right? Like have I don't know, either a couple $1,000 or kind of a couple $100, depending on how much money you have in general, or how much you're going to spend, on a completely separate wallet, right? Like a different master seed, completely unrelated to anything that you want to have as far as savings go. You don't want to take your Bitcoin savings, right? Let's say 10 grand in Bitcoin savings, fire that up on your laptop, and then make a purchase for $200, and then try to put that back away, because you've taken something that was safe and secure and put it on an insecure device. And even if that period of time is short, you don't know how much of that data is cached and how much of it's going to be kind of left lingering around for when you pick up a virus in 6 months. It's just something you don't want to mix those two categories up in your mind at all.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, like, just echo what y'all just said as far as, like, just diversifying across multiple wallets, and, keeping most of your Bitcoin in a hardware wallet. And, that's one of the things I didn't get into. I had a hardware wallet because I understood, like, the security risk. Like, I just knew, like, if I put a private key on there and, somebody was watching, it just gives them incentive to come after me. And I don't know, it's one of those things where, like, we were talking about a few episodes back about trusted hardware and if we'd ever get it and stuff. And, for right now, it's like the only thing I'd really trust is those hardware wallets, and try to avoid keeping any money really on a SPV wallet or a light wallet, unless it's just like for a temporary time period and just a small amount.
Yeah. And even, like I said, even hardware wallets, that's kind of that medium security category, right? You have like cold storage, pen and paper, that's high security. Hardware wallets is maybe medium security, and then low security would be like, a couple $100 on your phone.
Mm-hmm. So any more thoughts on key management, I guess, before we slide along to shit on my favorite thing to shit on?
Go for it.
Alrighty. I really hope there aren't any Ethereum maximalists watching, because whoa boy, yeah, this is not going to be fun for you. So the costs for anybody who isn't a node operator of managing an Ethereum node have been skyrocketing lately. And obviously you've got this tweet here, and if we go and look at this node count, this is pretty much not much different. If anybody remembers during the flippening meme this last year, this was about the concentration of nodes at that time, and they haven't really been going up that much. And yeah, part of the reason why is if everybody's read Jameson Lopp's breakdown here as a corporate employee trying to manage Ethereum infrastructure, Whoa, it is a giant shit show. So for anybody who doesn't know, Ethereum pretty much sizes everything in 256-bit chunks, which is not really like the standard way of doing things, and creates a lot of problems dealing with other programming languages, having to actually manage like in like kind of broken down chunks what would be an individual unit in Ethereum. And BitGo actually had to pretty much invent their own data structure and their own custom database to be able to manage things with Ethereum in the first place, just right off the bat. Then on top of that, they actually had to pretty much slap together their own client that managed crawling through data fed off their node and only paid attention to the balances relevant to their customers' wallets, because they really couldn't keep up with, like, you know, indexing and managing the entire thing. And then at times, like even a well-funded company like BitGo is having issues keeping their node up. Like Parity is randomly crashing on them. He recently went over a bug fix to explain one of these fix one of these crashes, but then explains that their node is still crashing. It's literally running out of resources at times, having to validate all the smart contracts taking place just to keep up with the chain tip. And a lot of weird user issues. Like, for instance, when you create a wallet on Ethereum, it's not just an address. Like, you actually have to have a smart contract compute something on the chain to create an account you can send money to. And this creates a lot of weird problems, because let's say you go to create an account, somebody sends money to your account before that smart contract actually finished creating that. Well, now you've got stuck money. So BitGo, again, has even had to like work in weird locks in their platform where it won't even display like an address or an account that somebody can send to until they've actually seen that that account was validly created and the smart contract creating it is completed on the chain. And so like this is definitely something that you should, you know, work through. And the last thing I wanted to mention is they noticed pretty much when you move Ether, like that's just a smart contract. It's visible, will move Ether, and this is kind of like transparent on the chain. But when you have a more complex smart contract managing things, there's actually internal transactions that like update balances to different accounts that you have to actually run that contract to find out any balance changes it created. And Jameson actually found out that a lot of businesses supporting Ethereum in the space don't actually run these contracts to see if they're updating balances for any of their customers' accounts. And like pretty much the like Ethereum support for industry is a giant shit show in terms of problems where users can lose their money, problems where businesses aren't even like keeping full track of money being sent to their customers, and just all kinds of just basic design flaws that make it a giant pain in the ass for any company to actually operate infrastructure around this. And yeah, I mean, like I know everybody I know has been calling this for years, but like these problems are finally coming home to roost. Like Ethereum was sold as the scaling solution to Bitcoin. It can't scale anything. It can't even keep anything working functionally.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I said last month. Like, it astounds me that, like, I don't know how anyone can be positive about Ethereum right now when it doesn't even have a functioning multisig. Like I said to Matthew Green, like, I see multisig as like the level 1 of smart contracts, because literally a smart contract is, you know, a whole point of a contract is that you're dealing with funds between multiple parties. So right now Ethereum is really only handling funds on some level, like all of the smart contracts that are being used are mostly for tokens. I don't know if that's not really a multi-sig. I mean, that's a really, really primitive multi-sig, but like, I don't, how can a smart contract platform not have a single functioning multi-sig wallet out there? Like, that just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, like, also, like when this CryptoKitty thing exploded, we were talking about how this is just going to cause a ridiculous chain bloat to where, yeah, it would be harder to run a node, and yeah, we're seeing that now, and all these ICOs, it's all that just adding chain bloat, and like you're saying, you know, they don't have a proper multi-sig, and we're kind of seeing these issues come out to where it's like, what's the answer? And they always, you know, point to Sharding and Casper, and I don't know, been hearing that for a while now, and I don't know, you know, it's the Ethereum community might just hard fork and move on. I don't know if that's the way it's going to go, though. Like, these things, you never really know how it's going to play out until it's playing out. So the way it is right now, it definitely doesn't look good as far as just trying to get transactions through. You can't really sync a node on the network, and it's just you got all these issues with wallets, and yeah, it's just it's something where I guess, like, way back when Ethereum started and we were all just pointing it to being a scam is one of the things we were pointing at, and it's just like finally now, like you're saying, it's coming home to roost because it's getting bloated enough that it has to scale. How it's going to scale, you know, it's up to the foundation and Vitalik, but it certainly is kind of, as somebody, I don't hold Ethereum, but if I was, man, it would be worrying just to know that we're facing these scaling issues, and you got Vitalik talking about, you know, hey, some upset people on Twitter is making me think about leaving Ethereum, and yeah, it just doesn't look good. I mean, I don't understand the price of Ethereum. It's up there, but you know, I don't know. Maybe finally these problems we've been talking about will be realized, and you know, won't look so bad about telling people not to buy it.
Well, the one thing I want to point out about the Ethereum node graph, if you could go back to that, at the bottom, it gives you like some really basic stats about the network growth, and the part where it said like node growth over the past month. So as of Sunday, when I was adding this, it said 0% growth over the past month. So now it's changed to 15%, I guess, and apparently it's been growing a bit, but like as of, you can see that it's right now, the peak that it's at is a peak from like probably several months ago or something, or maybe last month. I don't know exactly when that peak is because it doesn't show the axes, but yeah, as of Sunday, that figure was actually 0%. So the Ethereum network hasn't really grown. Like, it's not really growing over time. It's like growing and then dropping down and then growing again. Like, as you can see, all the other ones are like the last 24 hours, last week, those are going up, but over the months, you can tell that it's pretty much stagnant. So I think that's a bit of a problem, because I think there was a tweet that I had in there that someone was warning that if you're not running an Ethereum node on a high-end server, then you're probably going to get left behind. And that's not a good prediction to be making at this stage. I mean, because people are complaining about Bitcoin fees. Well, now apparently Ethereum fees have kind of caught up to Bitcoin a bit. And it's like, it took Bitcoin a really long time to get to fees of this size, at least in terms of the fiat amount. I mean, the actual Bitcoin amount hasn't, it's the same as it was in 2011, but it took Bitcoin a long time to get there. Whereas, I mean, Ethereum has gotten to it in about 3 years. That's kind of scary.
I think it's kind of funny. He used to like say that even 25 cents was way too high of a fee, and now you're talking a factor of 10 higher than that on average. But I mean, like, one of the most interesting things, like, in these design flaws, though, is the entire aspect of contracts, like managing funds. Because when you look at like an output-based system like Bitcoin, each transaction creates outputs, which then can be spent by providing the key to spend that much, blah, blah, blah. But like a wallet, in order to see its balances, it just scans through the chain, and checks those. Like that's it. Like moving money is outputs being consumed to create new outputs and validating the signatures. Like that's it. It's a constant universal format that every wallet parses or gets data derived from to see its balance. There's no tiering of it. But when you look at like something like Ethereum, where you can have a direct like movement of money on chain through just a standard transaction contract, I guess, but also have the balances of things be updated by more complex contracts that kind of internalize all those balance updates so that you actually have to run it. Like it's weird because it's like, you know, just scanning like the I guess the vanilla shit on the chain will only show you so much of the balance changes happening on the chain. And in order to really see everything else, like the computational costs are a lot higher than just a standard transaction. So like the costs of actually guaranteeing your balance is accurate can vary wildly based on what exactly is updating those changes. And I just think like that design decision in abstract is just retarded.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons we were saying it was a scam so long ago.
But I guess Mr. JW would like to share a threat analysis with us, and he actually thinks these damn things through and covers them pretty in depth. So,
yeah, I didn't. I mean, I spent a few hours looking at Ethereum, but I couldn't get myself to do a complete security review like we have on Bitcoin at btcthreats.com if you want to see kind of the detailed one. But yeah, what I wanted to do with this was just basically outline why I think it doesn't make sense to do a more thorough analysis, because it's just so absurdly insecure on the surface that spending any more time with it is just a waste of effort. So what I did is I wrote this up. I pushed this out a while ago. You know, obviously I got trolled plenty by the ETH community or the Ethereum community, but nobody actually pointed out any corrections, right? So as far as I know, all these statements are still true. So I think, you know, we'll throw it in the show notes or something. But yeah, Ethereum is just a joke, right? There's absolutely no value there. It's excellent marketing, and that's it. And you know, they've had plenty of time to rebuild it and turn it into something else, but they just lack the talent to even do that, right? Like if it started out sort of as a con, and then they got so much money and so much attention, they couldn't believe it. They had plenty of opportunity to actually rebuild it into something useful, and they have utterly failed with that over the last few years. It's just become more and more obvious that it's a worthless piece of junk. So anyway, from a security standpoint, it was always garbage. From a usability standpoint, I think it's becoming more and more obvious that it was always garbage. And so the thing that drives me nuts is that even though, you know, it's cool that Jameson wrote that up, it sucks that we have people like him that are really, really talented, smart guys having any of their mind share put into Ethereum. I think it's a tragedy.
I think this is this is definitely a laudable goal you got here. In trying to go grassroots on us, huh?
Hashtag free law.
Oh yeah, man. I noticed that tweet. I like that, man. Or wasn't this tweet? It was another tweet you had about I guess it was in response to his initial tweet about the Ethereum.
Yeah, when he published the doc, that was my initial thought was, oh man, I can't believe you're putting time into this. And I remember that, I remember he was fighting with his CEO there a bit ago a while back over a SegWit 2x, and it's just like, gosh, how much of this guy's talent and time has been invested in utter nonsense. And, you know, maybe he feels differently about it. I haven't talked to him, so I don't know. Maybe he feels like he's getting enough out of it, and maybe he's happy to have a more in-depth knowledge about the things that are not good so he can apply it to Bitcoin. So, you know, I'm obviously being really presumptuous, but But yeah, I think if we can raise some money to get Andreas to be a Bitcoin holder enough to where he can work on things that are only useful, I think Jameson is right up there, if not a better resource for the community. And I think it'd be awesome if we all threw in a few bucks here and there, and he was able to quit that company. I also have very little confidence in the business model of BitGo. I think they're way too early trying to facilitate payments. And so I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong though. Maybe he knows something I don't, and he wants to stick around. But I figured it was worth the shot to try to free him up and get him to work on Bitcoin exclusively.
Yeah, I would get behind a campaign that would free him not just from Ethereum but also from BitGo.
Oh yeah, no, that's the idea. I guess I should be more clear. The idea is fundraising enough to where he can quit BitGo and work on his resolution with Lightning. He wants to work on Lightning and push that forward. So let's give him the funds to make his New Year's resolution reality. And outside of BitGo is what I was thinking.
Yeah, and the troll box, someone in the troll box said that we should think of the kitties. I am thinking of the kitties. I think that Ethereum's most promising use case to survive the next 2 years is to go full on with CryptoKitties. And also, apparently there's another project, I don't remember the name of it, but it's doing dogs. The dogs are so much cuter than the cats. It's like, seriously, whoever the artist is for the dogs, you did a much better job. And so I want to see collectible cats and dogs. And also actually make to work on them actually being uncensorable and stuff like that. I would like to see that in Ethereum. Make it be the platform for cats and dogs.
Neuter your Ethereum dogs and cats. That should be our new campaign. We should get them neutered so that we don't have to talk about them anymore. No more Ethereum dogs and cats.
Screw this puppy kitty bullshit. When are the Pepes coming?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Where's the frogs? But yeah, I mean, like, that was such a big seller.
I could totally crush the network in like overnight.
That was such a big idea, big selling idea. The rare genetics of your kitty. Like, yeah, dude, the artwork wasn't really that great, so I could see somebody being like, let's just make better artwork. People love dogs more. Next, we'll probably see squirrels or something. It's ridiculous. I don't know what they're gonna do. We'll probably see a fork sometime here in the near future.
Yeah, well, I mean, that fork, I hope, is actually something with rational design trade-offs. Last jab at the punching bag is around the same time all this other shit was posted. Vitalik recently went over some of the long-term roadmap for scaling. And pretty much the long and short of it is comparing and contrasting Sharding, the main blockchain, with second layer protocols and saying that they're complementary approaches. And I do not understand the rationale behind this whatsoever, because the entire logic behind scaling in second layers is keeping that base layer something that everybody can validate the entirety of, which reinforces the security of the second layers. And this entire notion of sharding is just ridiculous, because it's effectively breaking the entire base layer up into just a few giant federators that validate everything, and then the little subservient nodes that only check their little piece. And it just, I don't understand on any level how you can rationally argue that those are complementary techniques to scaling, because the sharding undermines the entire logic that second layer solutions are based on, maintaining that sound foundation. And it's like I really hate to take the DeRosian approach, but Vitalik is just spewing memes. Like, he is just selling nonsensical memes that make absolutely no sense from a scientific point of view. It's insane.
Well, I mean, I think Vitalik has said before that he's not even really aiming for Ether to be sound money. So, I mean, as long as he's honest about that, I mean, if they're really if they're actually now trying to build this world computer that runs decentralized apps. I don't know if the federated model would be better for that. But the one thing I am concerned about is, you know, that if you could bring up the quote, I think he mentions that the whole idea of sharding involves having fewer nodes necessary to validate transactions, which I guess that's a good approach if you have a bunch of your ETH nodes falling off the network constantly because they can't keep up and they have to be run on high-end servers. So I guess sharding is the only solution to that problem if you have, you know, that issue. But yeah, I mean, I guess this is only a problem if there are people out there who think that Ether is going to be like some kind of sound money as Bitcoin is trying to be. But I think they're in for a rude awakening because this does not sound like it's going in that direction. It's going in the direction of apps. And maybe they'll actually have some functioning apps that are useful in the next year or so if they go that route and stop trying to be Bitcoin all the time.
Yeah, I think, you know, it kind of started off as like a federated system with the foundation. I mean, so I don't know how much, you know, like their crowd of Ethereum people, I mean, are really going to mind the idea of sharding. And, you know, I just think it'd be interesting to see how this, how a fork would play out, to see if they would, if the network would split again or if they would follow over. And, I don't know. I think we learned at the last split that they don't really, you're not really going to kill the older chain. But I don't know. We're still kind of seeing that play out with Cash and Classic. So yeah.
Yeah, with Ethereum is just absurd, right? Because they've already said they don't want it to be uncensorable, right? Like that's their way of saying they don't really have an interest in building a blockchain that's so secure that that it can't be screwed with. Well, that's just a database, right? Like what problem are you trying to solve? Sharding makes perfect sense when you have a database that's really, really big. And that's kind of what they have, but it's actually not that big of a database. So I think they're probably seeing what Ripple's done, you know, just build a big database and then just put the label blockchain on it. And then you can scale like crazy and you can make Bitcoin sound bad when it comes to transactions per second and all those other things. Ethereum is just like, it's the worst of both worlds, right? It's slow and it can't store any data and it's not secure. So at least Ripple, you know, at least Ripple can store data and it's fast. It's not secure, but neither is Ethereum. So there you go.
Yeah, sorry about the screen share goof up. Janine, Chromium just tried to kill me. But regarding what you just said, though, JW, exactly. Like my entire thought process in the only place that Ethereum can go to be useful is just evolve into a scripting stack for huge corporate databases. And that's really like, it's like, what else is it good for? Like it'll cost an insane amount of resources to run. It's going to be a metric fuck ton of data. And really all that ZK Snarks can do is prove selective bits of it. And so like that makes absolutely no useful sense to me except just a way for big giant databases to prove little information to each other. And I mean, like where does that leave the token and its value at the end of the day?
Right. Or go with proof of stake, right? Like pull the trigger on that now. I mean, I guess that's a meme that they can keep milking until they actually do it. But it's not secure. But again, nothing they're doing is secure. So why not just fire up proof of stake and go with that?
Yeah, that's where I'm almost just like, let's see them fork off their stuff because I mean, like that's pretty much everybody's following along anyway. Let's see how it goes. I mean, if they're wanting to get all this stuff fixed, I mean, it should be relatively easy if you have control of the chain like they do.
Yeah, the real problem is they just have no ideas, right? They have no technical ideas. They have no real technical talent. They have some Spice Girls of software running around, pretending that they're sporty, or I don't know what the other Spice Girls are, but they have, something special. But really, it's just a marketing team and a bunch of crap ideas and a bunch of crap code. And they're going to milk it for as long as they can, and then they'll go away.
Well, the problem is I think they actually do have ideas, but any ideas for applications that would actually be useful in a censorship-resistant platform kind of environment, they're not really willing to do it because it might offend some of their partners, their big corporate partners, and that is a huge problem because there are plenty of things that we need to have, like for censorship-resistant applications, but if you're not willing to build them because you're too focused on the stuff that gets people's attention or is a game that does anyone really care whether their pictures of cats that they don't really own are censorship resistant? All they have to do is they take a screen cap of the cat, they have it forever. I mean, that's more censorship resistant than it is just being stored on the Ethereum blockchain, because at least you could put it in an offline machine and encrypt it. No one could access it there unless someone broke into your house. Whereas if Ethereum goes down, all the cats are gone. You don't even own them from a legal standpoint. So, if they're they started off with the DAO, which is unstoppable code, and then they went to CryptoKitties. Where have they lost the motivation to actually build applications that need censorship resistance? They've lost that desire, because I think they've made too many corporate partnerships that would be a serious challenge to any of those proposals.
I don't think they really.
Vitalik was shilling quantum computers right before this. He's got a track record of being a bit of a con man, and so do the other folks involved. So I think we're just being too generous when we say that they've lost their way. I think they were con men from day one.
Yeah, I think the only person in the Ethereum space, by my measure, who isn't full of shit is Vlad. And he's just kind of stuck with well, everybody else is full of shit, guys. I don't know what else to do. I mean, who remembers Griffin? The guy from the DAO when he went on Bitcoin Uncensored? He was literally, I'm going to paraphrase the hell out of this, but he was pretty much asked, how do you think the DAO went? And his response was pretty much laughing and going, "It was awesome. I made a bunch of money." That was as far as his thought process went. The entire thing went down in a flaming pile of wreckage, but I got rich, guys. It worked awesome.
Yeah, I don't see any difference between Ethereum, Litecoin, and OneCoin. And so far, I've been saying that for a while, and so far nobody's really been able to challenge that in any meaningful way. So I don't know. It's Ripple. It's all Ripple.
It's all Ripple. I like that.
All right, you guys, you ready to slide into the next story? This kind of actually has me a little nervous. Sure, everybody's aware of the whole WaveCrest situation with all the cards being shut down across Europe. And I do believe this is pretty much isolated to Europe by everything I've seen. Here's BitPay with their announcement to European customers. Bitwala is also affected. And then CryptoPay. And this is actually a little anecdote from Nopara, the hidden wallet Zero Link dev. Apparently had to crash on some park bench in Taiwan for a couple days after a card was canceled. And, personally, I've never really been in that bad of a situation, but I'm pretty much all in crypto, and my Shift card is pretty much how I access money. And thankfully, that's issued by a different card issuer. It had nothing to do with WaveCrest or any of these European cards. But after how quickly all the WaveCrest issued cards were kind of canceled, that has me personally a little worried going forward. Because, I mean, if that happens in America or with the Shift or BitPay card, I'm in a real bind. I'm going to have to really quickly hustle and find some workable ATMs or get back to using local Bitcoins like I did when I first got into this space. But kind of worrying.
For me, it just highlights how scary the existing system is, right? You don't really think about it this way, but if you're in the United States, you have to ask the government permission to buy a car, even if you have enough money to buy a car, right? If you're going to finance it, it's going to go through, you know, your credit score, right? And it's going to go through all these other all these other processes that they have access to shut off or affect. And if you want to buy cash, or you want to pay cash, let's say you have $100,000 in the bank and you want to buy a $30,000 car, it doesn't matter. You still have to get permission from the government. And the way that that works is, if you try to get cash, you call your bank and you say, can you please schedule pickup for a large amount of cash? You can't just show up and grab $30,000. Those vaults are all just for show. They don't have any money in there. So then they decide, are they going to let you withdraw that amount of cash? And boy, that's a lot. You know, are you sure you don't want to just use your debit card or something else that's traceable that we can make a real-time decision on whether to approve or not? So it really affects all of us. It just gets highlighted with people that are dependent on Bitcoin.
But I mean, it's just like it's kind of fucked up. I mean, if something similar happens to the card issuer for Shift and BitPay, I mean, like right now, I can just kind of comfortably limit my exposure to, like, you know, a few $100 or what I need for bills, and even with fees as high as they are, it's economical to kind of move like that 500 or whatever to Coinbase, and then I have what I need to do. But like if I don't have the granularity that's kind of available with this option, like I really don't like that, because then like if I have bills to pay, well, I have to actually go sell coin then. Am I just gonna, like, hey, here's exactly what I need for my bill, guy? Like, do you want to buy exactly this much Bitcoin? Like, it's not going to work like that. Like, I'm going to be likely forced to cash out more than I otherwise would to actually cover my expenses. And that just adds all kinds of fucking frictions. Like, I'm very likely going to lose out a lot more money in that case. And just like the idea that like that could just be cut off for me like that, like it's kind of fucking scary.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what they want. Because for me, like, I'm astounded that Visa even let these kinds of services go up in the first place. Like, I mean, I was aware of them before this. It wasn't surprising hearing about this, that they existed. But it's like, I've always been kind of surprised that they even let them run, because like you said, that's kind of exactly the thing that a company like Visa or a corporation like Visa would want, is to make it as difficult to use Bitcoin as possible, to make you want to cash out as much as possible at inconvenient times. They want, because then that keeps you in the actual Visa dollar denominated system. And so I'm surprised that they haven't started. I'm surprised they didn't shut down the US cards as well, because I don't really, the reason they gave for shutting down their, because basically what they did is they shut down WaveCrest's membership in the Visa payment system or whatever. And the reason they gave was because WaveCrest wasn't complying with their standards. And I didn't see in the quote that they gave that they specifically said KYC, but I'm pretty sure it's probably something to do with the KYC compliance stuff, because that seems like the only reason why you would shut down these cards en masse for an entire continent without giving notice ahead of time. So I'm not really surprised that they've done this. I'm surprised they didn't do it sooner. And I think that, you know, making it more difficult to use Bitcoin is exactly the kind of direction they would want this to go in the first place. And probably the reason why they let it even happen in the first place is because, you know, Visa's modus operandi is to fuck with as many people's money as possible. And so if they can get a bunch of Bitcoiners to give their money into this like Visa payment processing system with their Bitcoin, and then screw them by, you know, shutting down their cards and freaking them out, that's probably exactly what they wanted to have happen. So that's the only rationale that I can come up with for why Visa even let this stuff happen in the first place, is that, you know, they just wanted to screw with Bitcoiners in the first place.
Yeah, it's one of those things where whenever I was thinking about getting into Bitcoin, it was like the hardware wallet and the Shift card really kind of made it easier, because the idea of like I could turn this into a savings and still spend it made it easier. But I think, you know, like you're saying, there must have been some sort of back end problem, because we haven't really really seen an issue here in the States. And, you know, we see the Cash App, you know, it kind of just gives you a card. And I don't know, I feel like we're, you know, with the btcpay.com, and I saw, you know, Francis, you know, talking about bills.com, BYLLS.com, and just different ways to pay your bills in crypto. And, you know, like it's definitely not still convenient for just like go and get something off the street, like at the store or something. But as far as paying your bills and things like that, I think we might have some solutions coming down the road. And I think as far as the cards in the States, we're not really gonna, I hope we're not gonna run into issue, because I think, like we're saying, there might be some back end thing with KYC as far as like why these got shut down. Because I don't know, I mean, there's a lot of Visa gift cards in the way that those are passed out, and a lot of Visa cards in general. So like, I don't know how they regulate those at all, but I don't know. It seems like it's just a way to make money, and you know they're not against making money. So maybe they're starting to recognize that they can screw with us by doing something like that. But I think we'll just see market competitors step up and take that position. So I don't know. It's something I'm not too worried about over here, but it's definitely something that's kind of jarring to see.
Yeah, here's Francis talking about bills as a little YouTube video for everybody to watch. But yeah, I mean, personally, I can just only hope that this is just a result of the EU getting a lot stricter with like KYC laws, AML laws, the restrictions on prepaid cards and things, and not some unilateral action on Visa's part. Because if it's the latter, then I think it probably is just a matter of time before they start taking action in the US as well. So I'm kind of really hoping this has more to do with the EU than Visa.
I think it does. There's just too much Visa gift cards out there, and I don't know if they're wanting to bring in any real regulation on those.
Yeah, but I guess one potential solution for people in my situation on the horizon. Yeah. So guys, are we gonna bro down, and are we gonna use Lightning Network to make a bunch of money off just spewing nonsense on YouTube, guys, or what?
Well, I think we should keep the YouTube free, you know. But hey, set up an RSS feed, you know, why not?
Yeah,
I mean, I wouldn't mind doing that. Just to test it out. I mean, we could just help with developing it by having, you know, being one of the testers.
Right.
I mean, I just think this is like just a cool application, because I mean, you know, aside from broing down and getting rich, I mean, this is really a nice way to kind of monetize informational content. And I mean, to kind of get outside of the crypto space for a minute. Like, I don't know how many people here use YouTube for anything other than crypto news, but I mean, there is definitely one side of the political spectrum right now on YouTube and a lot of other big walled platforms that are very selectively being demonetized and having their ability to actually make an income, like doing this kind of informational content, really take a hit. And to see something like this actually just as a beta before we even rolled out Lightning Network makes me feel a lot more optimistic about the future, because, you know, at the end of the day, if you can't find some way to like make ends meet doing informational content or something like videos on YouTube, you're not going to be able to keep doing it. And that's really a big dynamic way outside of just crypto going on right now, with all of the alternative sources for information on the internet kind of being like fucked with by bigger media platforms every way they can. Like, if you aren't selling the narrative we want you to sell, we're going to try and fuck with your ability to make money. And like, that is a serious thing that this can actually bring as far as tools to help people better their lives, not just like it's a lot bigger than, yay, we can go to our friends now and say Bitcoin can scale, buy it. Like, this could actually very quickly start making substantial changes to people's lives.
Totally. It's the first application of Bitcoin, right? It's the first problem that Bitcoin's really solving. Everything else has been speculation that Bitcoin will solve problems. This is the first time Bitcoin's going to solve problems. And it's not a small problem. It was a great way to kind of frame it, because if you're a content creator, you'd probably be happy to have 5 cents a view, whether it's a video or article or whatever, and you can't get anywhere near that because of all the friction involved in making that transaction, right? Nobody wants to go through all of the work to give you 5 cents, because it's like, I don't know, say 25 cents worth of effort for me to give you 5 cents. It's not going to happen. So advertising has filled in on that, and the whole internet is based on advertising, right? Like, how would you like to be a shareholder in Google or Facebook right now with Lightning Network coming out? That gives you some idea of the freaking scale of this thing. And it's not going to happen overnight, but it might happen over the next 2 or 3 years, and completely, just this one small micropayments application of Bitcoin completely rebuild the internet. I couldn't be more excited about it.
Yeah, I'm with you. And honestly, like, I think we might be seeing it sooner than we think. Just like, I saw some rumblings on Twitter from, some reputable people talking about like fully enabled Lightning networks in months, not in years. And so, I mean, like, we're seeing this here. And, like Janine's saying, it'd be a great idea to just sort of set it up and kind of help out with the testing, just sort of get these things rolling, because, yeah, it can change things drastically in the landscape as far as, trying to help out content creators or just micropayments. And like you're saying, I really think that the censorship resistance and immutability of Bitcoin is a big seller, but I don't know if we've necessarily seen that put to the full test, where this is like, full test out, we're seeing it solve problems. And, I think we've done really well with that censorship resistance as far, and it's just going to keep improving as these things keep getting stronger and more people come into the network. It's just more and more robust. It's a beast.
Zero confirmation payments, but totally secure, no overhead. It's insane.
Yeah, and for anyone who thinks that like 5 cents, it doesn't really add up to much over time. We've been getting about 1,000 views, sometimes more, on most of our episodes now. And so if you had 5 cents for each view of that would be about $50 per episode, which isn't a huge amount of money. But I mean, we're now on episode number 70. So 50 times 70, that's $3,500. I mean, that's better than nothing for a very small, like 5 cents is very, very small for, a view for a whole show. And I'm sure, I mean, we have gotten, I think we're close to $1,000 now in donations to our multi-sig address, but like, that for that small amount of money, like that can make a pretty big difference. And I'm sure there's people that would be willing to send more than that. But even 5 cents, that adds up over time.
Yeah, right. It's like just giving the people the option to do that, because there's multiple times where, I'd like to donate towards someone, but it's like, you got to pull out the card and you got to pay the payment processor. And it's like, you might as well donate a few bucks. Otherwise it's not worth it. Where, yeah, this is something where it's like the option is now available, really.
And I mean, like, check this out, everybody. I mean, this 600 something nodes and almost 2,000 channels on the testnet right now. And this is just the people who've taken that extra step to actually tinker with it on testnet, which is, in my experience, such an insignificant minority of people. I mean, like, random rant, like if you are in the Bitcoin space and you're not the most technically competent person, you don't know what you can do to help, test things. Like, go test things and actually help them get ironed out into working products first. But I mean, like, just out of, like, in my experience, that small chunk, like, this is awesome. Like, this is a fully developed, like, node network all over North America and Europe, with connections, I guess with the exception of Africa, because this is a notorious proxy. connections on every other continent. I mean, it's pretty encouraging to me going forward.
Yeah, I just can't wait to see more of that on mainnet, and I think we will be seeing more of that in maybe months, not years, like we were saying.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, here's a happy person. Look at how happy he is to give people money for tiny things.
I was just rewatching the talk that the Lightning guys that wrote the paper gave at Coinbase, and if you want some comedy relief, listen to the Q&A part, because there's some really dumb questions from Brian Armstrong. But I love the part where they're talking about, like, Visa can do 40,000 transactions per second at the peak, and Lightning should be able to do a few million, no problem. It's such a it totally eclipses all of the nonsense stories we've been hearing about raising the block size and all that stuff. It's just several orders of magnitude different from anything that we've been fighting about.
Yeah. I mean, Lightning's definitely more transactions than Visa.
It's going to be an interesting year going forward. And random thing. Let's go over why this is stupid, Janine.
Yeah, so I literally just saw this just before the show started, and I thought it was hilarious because, I mean, very well done website. But if you scroll down, let's look at some of the speakers that they have set up to speak. The keynote speaker, good old Roger Ver, which is a very curious choice, as Dan Darkpill, I think his handle is, pointed out. It would make sense for Satoshi's vision to, have Satoshi be the keynote speaker. And considering that Roger Ver and a lot of the other people involved think that a certain Australian man is Satoshi, it would seem to make a lot of sense to have him be the keynote speaker for the conference titled Satoshi's Vision. But, just putting the thought out there. But yeah, let's do Roger.
But it's coolio, because Satoshi said that Roger's got the whole vision lockdown and stuff.
Oh, okay.
In person.
So Roger Ver knows Satoshi's vision better than he does. I see. So I guess it's Roger's vision now. Oh yeah, now we have.
If they spent like 10% of the money they spend on graphic design on actual development, that would be interesting.
So here we have basically the only developers who are contributing to Bitcoin Cash. I don't even know if all of them are. I know that Emery, I think that's his name, on the left. Mm-hmm. He's like the main Bitcoin Cash developer. I don't know about the other two, really. I think they do contribute to some extent, although Andrew is actually at the Zcash Foundation, isn't he?
Andrew Stone is an idiot. This is the man who has literally said, I have neither the time nor inclination to fix this known bug. Like that was literally a response of his to having a huge bug in Bitcoin Unlimited pointed out.
Yep.
Just to be a needless jerk, doesn't Tom Harding look like he just asked somebody to come sit on his lap? You got to scroll up. Look at that photo. Come
okay.
I'm not gonna go there.
Inner asshole. Restrain yourself. let's go exercise inner asshole somewhere else. Hey Ryan, is yours $1 billion company yet? I heard you guys were going to be $1 billion company by 2018.
So disappointed in yours.
Oh fuck! They even got Open Bazaar. Damn it, you guys. What have you done?
I have never really been fond of any of the Open Bazaar people except Brian. I think he's the only one over there who isn't just kind of Satoshi's True Vision Kool-Aid head.
And we've scrolled down one more time, I think. Oh yes, this is my favorite. We have basically crypto eugenicist Peter Risen And then the professor.
Oh my god, dude! Like, Peter is literally Cookie Monster, just repeating the same lie over and over again, hoping you'll believe him. Because who can mistrust Cookie Monster? He's Cookie Monster, and anybody new to this space who hasn't watched the scaling Bitcoin conference from 2016 in Milan, watch it. Go watch Eamon Gunsire's proposal, where he literally talks about implementing colored coins instead of using op return to denote tokens, which was something at the time I think was like a year or two old standard way of doing top layer protocols. Literally says fungibility is broken, so let's just break it more, to build a covenant proposal that would pretty much allow chargebacks of sorts directly on the main chain. He's like, let's use this outdated by like 2 years method to just break fungibility even more and make chargebacks. Here's my proposal, guys. Oh my god.
He's always saying smart stuff on Twitter, so yeah. If you scroll down to the bottom there, they're looking for more speakers on governance and all sorts of topics. Just thinking about maybe I should submit something and go in there and talk about how their Bitcoin Cash governance is just awesome.
I should submit my security review for Bitcoin Cash. I somehow don't think they would want to look at it.
Exactly what I was thinking is, JW, you should definitely submit one of these things.
I actually think I'm going to jump ahead real quick. This is going to be one of the last stories, but if we look at Mr. Rob Danielson here, the co-founder of Rocketer, which is the operator of the Bitcoin Cash Tippr bot. Yeah, so a little drama-y, but yeah, he was arrested about 8 years ago for breaking and entering, and is literally the founder of this actually registered company that's literally doing nothing but a tip bot. I mean, let's really like break this down. Like Roger Ver, con man of the year. Mr. fucking Mount Gox is totally solvent, guys.
He went to jail
Emery, yeah, I mean, Emery such it. This guy literally just comes out of nowhere, rips every logical improvement out of a client, removes SegWit, bigger blocks. Here we go. The guy who literally told everybody when he was presented with an undeniable bug in his software, I don't have the time to fix it. Tom Harding, I'm not even going to get into Tom Harding. I think JW covered that in depth enough. The guy who thinks that on-chain micropayments was going to make him the owner of $1 billion company in the span of 4 months. Yeah, this guy who's literally 8 years ago was breaking into people's houses and stealing shit and runs a tip bot. One of the non-Brian Hoffman people from Open Bazaar, which speaks for itself. Mr. Cookie Monster, the guy who's literally always at least 2 years out of touch with the current state of development of things. And this guy, I have no idea who this guy is. Like that's the cast of this conference that is literally just like, look at this. This is a Japanese conference with like all the rejects of Bitcoin space, even branding itself as subtly and authentically Japanese as possible. Continuing with the recent trend we've seen of them just trying to manipulate like, you know, non-English speaking regions. I mean,
yeah, that's I was just about to say. It's like, you know, we saw Roger Ver and Craig Wright and all those guys jump into South Korea and how much influence that has. And I remember like hearing from people in Korea saying it's like, you know, a big problem of it is just people from America show up and they think people from over, they know exactly what they're talking about, and this is a sound investment. So, I mean, like, they could be using that same, thing against Japan. It's unfortunate, but we need more people in the space stepping up, calling these things what they are, the scams they are. If you're in the area, buy a ticket, record it, stand up, call it a scam.
Oh yeah, and Janine, thank you for this. I forgot about this. I forgot. Wow. Yeah, when Eamon Gunsire was using the debug mode that was not secure in any sense of the word whatsoever on the Intel SGX to try and build some kind of micropayments thing that just directly swapped keys and deleted the one that you send on the device, provably trying to argue with Peter Todd that no, this wasn't debug mode, this is secure, we can use this. No, it wasn't. This situation pretty much boiled down to Eamon lying about whether this Intel product was actually in a state that could securely be used when it wasn't. Like, outright lying.
Yeah. Go call them outright liar to their face, please. Please put it on YouTube.
Yeah, and also, Shinobi, if you could bring that up one more time, let's just take a hard look at the people who liked that tweet. Let's no, we don't even need to say their names. Let's just look at it. Bring it up one more time, Shinobi. I just want to show it and point it out. Come on. Show it. Oh, that's the wrong one. Just take a long, hard look at the people who liked that tweet. Just take a look. That's all.
We all change our minds on things, right?
Well, it's very easy to change your minds when you don't know about hardware security.
Yeah.
But guys, breaking news. Bitcoin is an ICO for Lightning Network. Bitcoin's an ICO, guys. Dump it, quick, shit. Oh my God.
Oh, it's so ridiculous.
It's definitely more ridiculous than Bcash is an ICO for ASICBoost.
I just think this is pretty funny. I think Janine put this up there, but just the way that exact language was used, and then I think Ben's response is pretty on point.
That's perfect.
And if anyone doesn't understand the context of that joke, literally Bitcoin Cash, like, it forked, and one of the things that obviously the fact that they didn't have SegWit in Bitcoin Cash was a big deal, because one of the benefits of SegWit was that it wouldn't work for things like ASICBoost. And so the fact that Bitcoin Cash didn't adopt SegWit, well, that means it still works for ASICBoost, guys. So if anyone doesn't get the joke, that's why it's funny.
Yeah, and ASICBoost is a way to pretend that you've performed proof of work when you haven't, because there's just basically a way to game the security model. So it's taking advantage of a security flaw in order to mine more cheaply.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that was that joke is right on the money, really, because we see like how much that means something to them. Where you just take this right off the ledge.
Yeah, and the funniest thing to me is that ASICBoost pretty much works more efficiently the smaller the block you are mining is. And it's always been really funny in my mind, the people who've just come to like blindly defend ASICBoost, and it's just the market. It's okay. Like, everybody will just use it eventually. Where if everybody used ASICBoost, it would kind of just be a second level of things outside of consensus rules, keeping blocks very small and fees very high, because miners would be incentivized to mine as small blocks as possible to get maximum saving from ASICBoost, and would only not do that when fees got so high that it was more profitable to just take that loss and get all the high fees. So just that cognitive dissonance has always boggled my mind.
Yeah, and it's not like, I mean, ASICBoost is taking advantage of a security flaw. It doesn't mean that we couldn't find other security flaws, right? That might be more interesting. It's, you don't want to leave security bugs out there because nobody's found a way to damage the network too much with them yet. It's just not a good idea. But that's Bcash. That's pretty much Bcash in a nutshell. It's Bitcoin, add in transaction malleability and a dangerously large block, and you've got Bcash. Oh, and then take away a bunch of hash power. So there you go.
Yeah, it was kind of aggravating to me too. Whenever you hear when the ASICBoost story was coming out, and everybody was just talking about, well, it's just a gained efficiency, and eventually everybody will be using this gained efficiency. But it's true that, I mean, like if some average Joe bought a miner and didn't know about ASICBoost, it would really kind of set in this two-tier system within it. So yeah, it was one of those things. Once Ampli came out, it was like game over. Like that's it. Like really intention scene. And I'm really glad we're past that, because that was a moment in time where I was really worried.
Yeah, it's giant government-backed monopolies for you. But other things governments do, though, I don't really mind so much, if I'm being honest. BConnect!
Hey.
This is just news to my ears. I mean, the year of the SEC, anybody?
Yeah, so if anyone doesn't know, apparently BitConnect operates out of the UK, and so they have an address in Ashford, England, and also London, and the London office, which I find hilarious because I cannot think of a greater vulnerability than to have a cryptocurrency, or at least a mockery of a cryptocurrency, that has a physical office somewhere that you can actually shut down, bang on the door and stuff. And so what happened is that they have been served a cease and desist order to stop the operations of BitConnect. Now, why have they been sent this? Well, as you can see, they kind of lay it out in this 9-page document. Not really. They don't really need a lot of evidence to find them in violation of a bunch of securities laws. But one of the things they lay out is that it's clearly a pyramid scheme, because I think it's on the 2nd page. You might have to scroll down. Yeah, the lending program. So they actually lay out in this lending program, like what kind of tier you have to be at to earn this certain amount, and obviously a pyramid scheme. And it's just so hilarious because it's all so blatant. They didn't have to even do that much work to find evidence for this. It's just, they make it so obvious because that's one of the selling points, is that they are like, oh, if you invite more people, you get more money, blah, blah, blah. And so, yeah, I find it funny because, and not to say that I don't like the SEC and I don't acknowledge their authority, but I do think that it is important for this industry to go through this phase where governments are taking down this stuff, not because I think it necessarily should be taken down, although in this case I would agree it should be taken down, not necessarily, again, acknowledging the authority of the government to do such things. But if your cryptocurrency can be taken down by a cease and desist order, then I don't think, that's not what I got into Bitcoin for. The whole reason they haven't done something like this for Bitcoin is, 1, because it doesn't operate as a pyramid scheme, and 2, because they can't really take it down because it operates in multiple countries. It's decentralized. Everyone controls their own money, or at least that is the ideal. That can actually be achieved, although people have taken they've taken some liberties with that, with using centralized exchanges. But yeah, if you're running a cryptocurrency that can be sent a cease and desist order, and that is basically a kill switch for your project, then I'm not really interested in you, and I don't really care if you get shut down, because you're not embodying any of the ideals that I got into Bitcoin for. So, yeah.
Yeah, this is this is great to hear, honestly, because you know, we get these phone calls every now and again from people who know that, you know, you're working with Bitcoin and stuff. And one of my uncles called, and he didn't ask what's Bitcoin, he asked what is BitConnect. And we know, I mean, like I've seen it's like the BitConnect commercials on YouTube are just everywhere. And you know, you've seen that BitConnect party conference where, God forbid, you're some little old lady with a retirement in Florida and you see this party going on about how, you know, this is the future and you just invest and jump in. And now you have this real strong distaste for anything related to Bitcoin. And I don't know, this is kind of where I think Bitcoin maximalism, you know, kind of like, you know, I think for a long time, everybody's like got this libertarian slant of like government's intervention's bad and everything. But this is something where I feel like it is kind of necessary just to sort of clean up the weeds, because I don't know. I mean, like maybe you'll argue against this, JW, but I feel like too many people are just going to lose out on that one. Like I know people, dumb money needs to learn, but I feel like it's just so much of it to where it could just suck up people, you know, like really just like you know,
yeah, no, you're not wrong.
Predatorial, I mean, taking advantage of people.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, even if we don't have a system where we have a mafia that is kind of protecting us, pretending to protect us in order to take our stuff, right? Which is what we have now. So, like the SEC, they want average people to only be able to invest in their particular curated list of scams, right? Like whatever's on the stock exchange that's super highly overvalued right now. They want those people to get screwed by putting their entire life savings in that in preparation for another 2008 or what, you know, all of the different busts that have happened, right? So these guys aren't good guys, they're bad guys. But in any kind of a world where we had let's say anarchy, we would have a legal system, right? Anarchy is not without a legal system, and we would have a system that's a free market system that's actually effective and has customers instead of subjects and servants, right? Or you know, human cattle. And one of the things that's very fundamental is we would have systems that were set up, you know, through private security and through legal systems, private legal systems, to deal with things like fraud, right? Because you know, even the most extreme libertarian anarchists believe that your body belongs to you and your labor belongs to you, right? The fruits of your labor belongs to you. So if somebody comes along and deceives you and tricks you through fraud into stealing your stuff, essentially, that's, you know, nobody thinks that shouldn't be dealt with. And the reality is we're just in a place where we don't have any free market legal systems that can function right now because we are living under a mafia. So when they're right, we should just take it, right? And when they actually do deal with somebody, instead of dealing with somebody like Ross Ulbricht and putting him in a cage for doing something peaceful and, you know, a victimless crime, if you can even use such a retarded phrase, and they actually go after somebody that is victimizing the innocent and screwing people over like your uncle and trying to take his stuff, I think, you know, there's nobody that has a problem with that.
Yeah, and I also want to point out that some of the reasons why BitConnect has been I wouldn't want to say successful, but the reason why it has been able to proliferate so much throughout, you know, the web is because it has taken advantage of supposedly legitimate channels of spreading information. It has taken over the advertising system. It's shown up on coinmarketcap.com. It's shown up on YouTube. That's why, you know, as you may have noticed, a bunch of channels have shut off advertising because BitConnect ads kept showing up. And even when you literally took the channel name and you went to AdSense and you said, I want to block this channel from having ads on my channel, they would say, okay, they would accept, but then they wouldn't actually do anything about it. That's why, you know, I characterize Google stuff as abandonwares, because they say they do stuff and then no, they actually don't do any kind of maintenance on any of their things. And so people probably were blocking ads, or blocking these channels from showing ads on their channel, thinking that it was working, and it actually wasn't. So advertising system, biggest scam that BitConnect took advantage of. So basically, it's a scam that took advantage of other scams. They've been spamming people on Twitter, on social media sites, and they also appeared on Cointelegraph, because Cointelegraph has a very low threshold for quality of news news topics and sources. So they appeared on, journalist pieces. So they basically took advantage of a bunch of different information channels, and that's why they were allowed to proliferate. Not because they were doing anything right, but because they knew exactly how to spread information about their scam. And so the real problem that still hasn't been fixed, even if BitConnect goes down, is that you have this really parasitical advertising system that is one of the biggest reasons. Like, if you thought 30% loss of CPU speed from these meltdown bugs was a problem, oh my God, advertising is the biggest reason why cell phones and laptops are under strain, because you have to load all of these ads every time you visit a page. And I think it's actually more than a 30% drag on speed with ads. So all of these problems still exist that need to be fixed. So the job is not over yet.
I don't believe you, Janine. The ad blocker in my brain can make the websites be faster.
Shinobi, your brain CPU might have an ad blocker, but your actual CPU doesn't, and your CPU is probably very upset with you that you're not that you're not doing more to think of its feelings.
I can't help it. I just don't notice them. Like
we need to actually exploit Meltdown through ads. You'll notice them.
That's what I was just about to say. It's like that ad will shoot that malware in you.
Yeah, and that was one of the main channels of exploitation was ads. So all these problems are still there. But yeah, Shinobi, because the thing is, if these episodes of Block Digest survive like a decade, we're gonna look back and be like, wow, look at all those ads. So I don't know, maybe it's a good thing, like that we'll know what kind of ads we're playing on the internet at like the time that's kind of like a time stamping mechanism if you think about it, because because it'd be very difficult for us to design our own ad campaigns to like fabricate these videos, like go back in time and everything. But if we had ads playing in the background, maybe it's like a time stamping mechanism.
Very you should work for an altcoin. You just turned a security bug into a feature. That's awesome.
That's right.
Oh God, no.
Speaking of people engaging in lax security, oh yeah, that company that has that TipBot ran by that guy who used to steal shit from people's houses. Whoopsies. Looks like that centralized TipBot solution might not work so well. Dare I make the ironic statement of Lightning Network ?
Yeah, it'd definitely be a lot simpler than somebody just grabbing your username.
I like the little pop up there, Shinobi, that says "Have a cookie."
I want a cookie.
Have some malware.
Chocolate chip.
Oh, but right, didn't they just the TipBot guy? He just went after. Go ahead.
Why is the cookie on his eyeball?
Because it's so gangster.
Such a weird picture.
It's so gangster that way.
Because the cookie's watching you.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good one. Yeah, maybe it's very subtle, but in the ad campaign.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, pretty much though, long and short is their email, Reddit's email provider compromised, TipBot account compromised, and then bye everybody's tip funds. And to boot, they probably, if they really cared to, had access to it was open anyway, but I guess more condensed. All of the users who got that money. Like he can even figure out whose Reddit handle he stole from. All the money's gone because your micropayments platform was this bot that depended on this one Reddit account to manage everybody's money. I mean, like, security, guys. Let's give a round of applause for the Bcash people.
Which just See, that tells you something very interesting about actually how many people are using that tipping bot, because I've seen plenty of tweets on Twitter from different accounts saying, "Oh, look, send the Tippr bot to this person." It's like, oh, okay, so there's a very limited amount of, I mean, assuming not all of the Twitter accounts were run by one person, which is entirely possible, as we know. I was like, okay, so there's some people using Bitcoin Cash to send $5 tips. Okay. But then if it turns out that a lot of it was stolen because less than 20 Reddit accounts were affected, it's like, that tells you about who's using it, doesn't it? Tells you it's not really being used by that many people.
I would wager a guess that like 90% of the money there was just Bcash spammed at people who just ignored it.
I wouldn't be surprised. And I don't know. I think it just like, I mean, yeah, you're putting crypto on any of these other platforms. I think you have to raise your security infrastructure. I mean, like, because this old system of just like name and password feel like it could be easily cracked. And
the beautiful,
what do you think about that, GW?
Like, there's a solution though to this security problem. And what they're trying to do is called micropayments. And the solution is something called Lightning, which they can't run on Bitcoin Cash because they didn't fix transaction malleability with SegWit. So, I mean, it couldn't get any more like full circle than that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like probably the most simple fix is that. Just switch to a more secure network.
But guys, it's cool. He's got a Reddit account.
Well, the thing, I've just completely spaced on the name because I never used it. But what was that tipping service that used to do it for Bitcoin? Change tip. Ah, yes. It's like, oh, do we really want to bring back change tip for Bitcoin Cash? I don't think so. So I always found that service super annoying. Like, really, you're going to send me cookies and it's worth 5 cents? No, like, it's like, don't bother. And also it's completely de-anonymizing, because every time you send someone a tip over social media, then obviously that transaction can be found very easily, and you'll know that that's where it's going to. And so I was never really in favor of that kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. What I mean, Lightning fixes that. Like, we can actually send each other 5 cents, and it will be even more, secure and anonymous. It's great.
Yeah.
We don't need some stupid centralized service. I could just send you 5 cents, right? It could be that easy.
At least make it a Lightning transaction that's onion routed, please.
There you go.
But JW, that is
the only time I will accept 5 cents.
You'll have to take the KYC AML probe up the butt from Blockstream AXA and pay them their centralized routing hub fees.
Totally. The super hubs. Oh no, the super hubs are going to get us.
The Federal Reserve super hubs.
Actually, that was one of the things, and that if you watch that Q&A, that those poor actual computer scientists had to endure at Coinbase. That's one of the things that Brian Armstrong is freaking out about. Oh my God, the super hubs sitting in Coinbase, which is by definition like the super hub of super hubs, and he's worried about decentralization. It's worth watching just for the rage.
You need to cough up a link to that so we can pop it in the channel for the viewers.
Right now.
Well.
Yeah, I think this Bcash Tippr bot and the security and all, like, just it really kind of highlights just like that. I don't know. I don't think a lot of these people really get it. They don't really get it, like what we're doing here as far as like trying to create a trusted third party and have that be reliable and censorship resistant and all this. I mean, if they're bought and sold from this, I think they're getting into it from the wrong perspective.
Well, I mean, I just think like the idea, it's like hubs kind of just like that's showing a ridiculous like state of mind as far as like how you're thinking about these things. Like, all Bitcoin is a protocol to destroy some unspent output and create more. That's all it is. It's a protocol that does that, and we have the software that implements that, and we use it. Lightning is just a protocol for creating a channel with somebody else and managing state in an isolated way. Like that's it. Like there's absolutely no implication of like centralization or even perfect like decentralization. Like it's just a protocol to establish like an interaction with a peer. And like how that's used, there's a million ways you can use it. I guarantee you we'll see it used all the million ways that it can be used. But it's just a protocol. It's like the Lightning Network. Like I kind of hate that phrasing in a way, because it implies it's like some homogenous, like singular thing. You can have a million different Lightning networks. You can have one that's entirely centralized with your exchange. But hey, guess what? In that situation, your interaction with the exchange, everything is instantly secure the minute you close a position and have things move to your end of the channel. What's bad about that? Like in the case of a micropayments like network, that's probably going to be decentralized as hell, and a mesh of people just putting in like $5-10 with a bunch of people they know so they can route around and just periodically have them close and reopen at very low fees. That'll be decentralized as fuck. Are you mad that that's what you're not, or not what you're going to use to interact with your exchange? No. Why should you be? Like it's just a protocol that can be applied in situations.
Yeah, it's so Brian, if you I threw the link up there, but Brian's like, wringing his hands and weeping and gnashing his teeth over the centralization of hubs. And then I always have trouble with his name, but Trajdaja, one of the co-authors, not Joseph Poon, the other guy. Basically. Thanks. Yeah. So he basically says, well, yeah, you could have somebody set up a super node and try to make all of these connections, but the barrier to entry is zero, right? Like it costs nothing to set up another node and make some additional connections, right? And they're completely interchangeable, right? So it's not like you can establish a brand name around a node, really, right? Like the network just doesn't care. It's just like the internet. You're just another router on the internet, and nobody cares about you. But if you're faster, we'll use you. If you're cheaper, we'll use you. And you could almost just hear Brian Armstrong just go, "Oh, there goes our business model. We're screwed. Zero barrier to entry, zero cost, no brand name. Oh no."
Yeah, and speaking of more things that are threatening Coinbase, I was actually surprised because I see Mr. Hodl is in the troll box. I don't know if he's still there, but he made a comment on Twitter about how he didn't really care about atomic swaps. I was kind of surprised by that, because atomic swaps are going to really, like, if you think Lightning Network is going to affect Coinbase, atomic swaps are really going to affect Coinbase, because then you can trustlessly swap Bitcoin, centralized exchange. So that seems like a big deal.
He thinks altcoins are stupid, so swapping into altcoins is stupid.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, but we should be clear. Like, I mean, that's one of the benefits, that you can swap between cryptocurrencies, but you can also swap within a cryptocurrency itself, because obviously all you need is the reason why it works with Litecoin is because Litecoin has SegWit, and so you can swap with Litecoin. But you can obviously swap Bitcoin to Bitcoin. That's just, it's not as exciting of a use case in terms of, like, when you're describing it to people. It's like, oh, you can swap Bitcoin for Bitcoin. Okay. Swapping Litecoin for Bitcoin is a lot more exciting to people.
I'm going to blow everybody's mind. Atomic swaps with Tether and Bitcoin. Boom.
My mind is not blown.
Well, if Tether survives another year, maybe.
You still have that just adds another layer, right? Now I got to turn my dollars into Tether so I can turn my Tether into Bitcoin.
Well, I mean, come on, like some kind of equivalent of Tether will exist. It's not going away. Like somebody's going to build another one. Somebody's going to slap the KYC on it. Some governments might even just build the damn thing themselves. But if it's compatible with a hash lock, atomic swaps, boom.
I think you just killed JW.
JW is melting.
No, it will never exist. It will always be a scam. Just like the Bank of England just now announced, oh, we were really excited about that cryptocurrency idea. Whoever was our director of IT was all fired up, and then somebody had to remind them that we're running a big Ponzi scheme here, and if everybody removes their money, all this stuff is going to come crashing down. You can't do tether to the dollar. Because the dollar is just as big of a Ponzi scheme, maybe even bigger than the Ponzi.
Sure you can. It's just your tether is only going to be worth $1, and if the dollar is not worth shit, well, oops, I wouldn't want to be holding those.
No, but here's the problem: if you went to go withdraw cash and you stored it yourself, and everybody else did that, the entire U.S. banking system would be revealed as a fraud, because there's between 1/20th, maybe 1/10th, maybe 1/100th of $1 for every actual dollar that's in your bank account right now. There's no money. It's all a scam. And if they ever do that, they'll call it a bank run, right? And they'll say, oh, people just lost their faith in the system, and then they'll blame it on the average guy that's like trying to feed his babies. But the reality is the average guy just realized, oh my God, there's no money in the bank. Ah.
Dude, it's totally cool. I hear Tether has a money printer.
No, there's never going to be a good tether. It's just the bad thing is just gonna rot and go away, and we'll have Bitcoin.
Yeah, but I mean, like JW, like the road to a world completely devoid of fiat isn't gonna happen overnight. And like even if major fiats now get smashed down, watch how long it is before you see like Bitcoin getting scooped up and another attempt at like backing the thing with Bitcoin instead of gold. Like I really don't think we're just going to atomically like transition to that world. I think that is going to be a much more gradual, slow thing. And I mean,
right,
as much as it would be a scam, like we're going to see like digitized money from like centralized fiat sources. Like it's gonna happen.
You can't have digitized money and fractional reserve banking. One will break the other. So if we do go to digital money and people are able to withdraw and securely store their cash, and that's not prohibited by the governments, then fractional reserve banking would fall apart.
Well, I mean, I don't really think it's that black and white. And I mean, if like, okay, total tangent.
Well, no,
next story. Hold on, Jado. Let's look at Japan. Like, I forget the Japanese word for it, but they actually have a currency that is issued by a private company. That's it's pretty much called an elderly care credit, and it's literally an entirely independent private currency that is denominated in like an hour's worth of care for an elderly person. And there's actually a booming economy in Japan around these things, where like, children who have to leave their parents will work and take care of some other elderly person where they're living to send these credits home to their parents, who can then in turn pay somebody. And it's a completely specialized, like narrow currency with a very narrow incentive behind it. And to like kind of expand off of that, like rewards points and credits with big companies in Japan are huge. And like when you start to look at like the different ways you can kind of narrowly digitize like money in those narrow senses, I don't think it's crazy at all to look at digitized money that isn't just outright like all dollars are this token now. And I think that when you see the kind of more gradual transition like that, I very much do think we will see like, a world for a long time that does have like currencies that are not just Bitcoin or like strictly cryptographically tied to Bitcoin, that are floating on their own value. And I really do think like that's pretty much just unavoidable. And like if you really look at like Japan's like situation economically speaking, they're pretty much like 20 years ahead of the curve as far as like what the rest of the world is dealing with or going to be dealing with. And one of the things they've done is just like this kind of rapid proliferation of like these reward credits, like a kind of an equivalent for corporate script, like things like these elderly care credits. And I just think it's unavoidable to see like economic tokens pop up for like situations like that.
It's possible. I mean, prepaid gift cards or prepaid services, which is what you're talking about. I don't know that they're going to be super popular, but they might be. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about money, right? And money is the unit of account in a region, right? What you price things in, because it's so commonly used as savings and as a medium of exchange. And the problem there is that you can only have one thing be that thing, right? So it's a battle to the death. And all of that aside, if you were to digitize the US dollar in a way that we would want you to, right? Because the US dollar is already digitized. It's just digitized in a way where you're not able to control your own money, right? You can't get a hold of your private keys. There is no private keys because it's just a database. It's just Ripple, right? But if you wanted to actually have private keys and hold them, and it sort of what we mean when we say digital money, that would cause this big problem where there just isn't enough money to give everybody their money, even though it's digital and even though it's, you know, basically BS. There's still a huge shortage of cash if everybody actually wanted their cash, right? If you wanted to put if everybody went down to their bank and said, hey, thanks for holding on to my private keys for me, glad you didn't Mount Gox me, I'd like to accept that now, right? You tried to put it on your digital wallet, they would not have enough to give everybody. None of the banks would, and that's by design. They only have, maybe, if I'm being generous, 10% of the money that they have in everybody's account balances. So that's a problem they would have to overcome in order to digitize cash. And that's specifically why, actually, the Bank of England said that they realized this was a bad idea, right? It was because it would cause bank runs, which means it would make it easy for people to hold their own money, which would expose the fact that we don't have it. That's exactly what they meant by saying it would cause bank runs.
Well, I mean, like, I'm just thinking, like, couldn't they kind of like just control their own undoing? Like, you know, like, because I'm thinking, like, really the reserves that they have and the amount that they lend out and everything right now, I just can't think that they're actually doing it like by the books and the way things are going right now. Where if they had like a coin like Tether or something, and you can't really necessarily say like all exchanges have to KYC because, you know, maybe some will operate outside of that. But if you had a coin where you had to get Bitcoin through this coin, then maybe, you know, then you can actually KYC everyone. Like, I'm just trying to think of like what would be the advantage of that, and like how much of this are they actually already doing right now?
Well, so here's part of the problem is that this whole scheme that all the central banks are running is dependent on the ability for them to control the money supply and for us to not know how much there is. Because if and this is why we can't audit the Fed, right? If we were able to find out all of the shenanigans and games that the Fed is playing, then they wouldn't be able to effectively manipulate us into giving them all of our money, right? If we knew what the Fed knows, we would know probably a lot closer when the boom cycle is going to happen, when the bust cycle is going to happen, when we should invest and when we should pull out and go into cash. And they don't want us to have that knowledge because that's their role. Their role as the central bank is to deceive us into acting against our own economic interest. So there are ways that it could be fixed, but it would just break the whole purpose of this system, right? It's a corrupt system that's designed to steal your money. They don't want to fix it.
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't think Tether would be an improvement, because to be honest, if I had to choose between the current banking system and one where one of the quorum actors is PGP, I'm sorry, but believe it or not, I would actually go with the traditional bank.
Damn.
No, I would too, because it's just too tempting to run off with the cash. I mean, if you're part of some massive system that fleeces everybody regularly, you have less motivation to do a quick hit and run.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you know, these things aren't like entirely useless. I mean, yeah, there's like the argument you made is just undeniable, GW. But like outside of like applying it like just widely for everything, like a thing like that is useful. I mean, like that Tether is a huge part of why we actually have the arbitrage opportunities to kind of keep the price in line at a lot of different exchanges. And that goes doubly so for like altcoins. And I mean, without some kind of thing like that, you just kind of throw the whole market out of whack. And it makes it a lot harder for things to like find that actual price equilibrium.
No, I don't think it's a bad idea, right? Like if we, I don't think Tether in and of itself is a terrible concept where you've digitized dollars, right? But if that's allowed to continue, it will expose the corruption underneath of dollars themselves, right? From bank runs and these other things. And that would cause the existing system to collapse rapidly instead of maybe gradually. So I don't know. I mean, it's a lot to unpack there, right? Like I would like the system to go away quick, but not so quick that a lot of people starve to death because of all the chaos that's created in the transition. And I would like people not to get screwed over and have their money stolen from them. And that would be harder in a system where there was like free market competition, right? Like you can't have one Tether, but if you had, 60 or 70 companies that had 100 years of reputation built up and a lot of experience, and we had a lot of reason to believe that they actually had the dollars in the vault and they were competing with each other. And we had, audits and cross references and insurance companies that were insuring your funds and all the things that we used to have actually before government took over money, when we were using little pieces of paper to represent gold stuffed in a vault somewhere. And we had independent market driven paper cash. That would be fine. But we just can't get there from here without exposing the fact that there's no money in the vault.
Yeah, and I think, because like I'm also not against the concept of Tether. I just wouldn't use it in its current form with its current administrators. But yeah, I think one of the reasons why Tether is so dangerous is because like you have like compared to the actual digitized US dollar system, Tether looks very attractive because you'll always know how many Tethers are out there. It's all transparent. And, like anytime they increase the supply, you'll know immediately. How many times do you know that for the US dollar? Like it's a seriously dangerous, like that's why I don't think it's going to continue for very long, because when you basically have a digitized dollar that is more attractive and transparent than the actual digitized dollar system, that's a big threatening thing.
I didn't even think about it like that. You're right.
Well, I think it's like part of like the entire like rationale behind like a lot of banking regulations, to my understanding, is to be able to add that friction to markets when they want. And that's where the entire value add of that comes from. It allows people to completely skirt pretty much in terms of arbitrage through different markets.
Because, it'd be really interesting if we had a Bitfinex type character for the Federal Reserve, who every time the Federal Reserve increased the money supply would tweet out, oh, look, there's another $1 million. There it goes. What are they pumping now?
I think the closest we ever got was Ron Paul. I still don't know how that guy made it without getting assassinated, but probably because they didn't let him audit, right? Like he kept saying, I want to audit, I want to look at the books, and they just said no.
I'm actually seriously disappointed that there was no Coinbase after the whole fucking like scandal with their UTXO management. Like, I mean, Bitcoin community, I am disappointed in you. I thought you were trollier than that.
Well, that's only if you consider characters like Bitfinex to be ones that, they're revealing this information because they care about customers or they want to challenge the current financial system. I don't exactly think that was his motivation. So that's probably why you didn't see a Coinbase account, because Coinbase is doing exactly that. It is, it's not actually threatening anything about the current financial system, whereas Tether kind of is, even if it's doing it poorly, in my opinion.
Surprise segue. Look at this funny, stupid thing. Everybody saw this? Huh?
Banana.
Everybody saw this? It's a banana. Woo-hoo! You see a banana, people. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo!
Oh,
banana.
It's an apple. I think that's what they're trying to tell you. No matter how many times you say that, monkey.
Banana.
It's a cash system. Look, there it said it really quick. It's cash.
Actually, I don't see a banana or an apple. I see a copycat ad that was used elsewhere in the past that hasn't been given the proper credit to its original creators.
Yeah.
When they flashed up that white paper, did it say Bitcoin a peer-to-peer insecure electronic cash? I think I saw it.
Or did it say Bitcoin a peer-to-peer Satoshi's vision?
Yeah. I think you pointed out where that commercial came from. Was it a political ad, JW?
I thought it was, but it was actually an ad. It's even better. CNN was trying to talk about how credible they are and how you shouldn't listen to all the fake news on social media because they've always got the truth.
Right. They made it. Everybody was yelling fake news at them, and they were saying,
what?
"No, we're news."
Oh my gosh.
That's what it was?
That's slightly distracting. Yeah, I know. Can you believe that? The irony of just copying the most absurd commercial that I've seen in the last 10 years. CNN complaining that they're the truth. And then somebody was enjoying their job that day. They were like, Roger's too stupid. He won't connect these dots. Let's use the one where CNN is pretending to be credible to talk about Bitcoin Cash.
The very obvious, yeah. It's just, yeah, real life mocking. Yeah, that's brilliant. Good job, whoever did that under his nose.
That feel when you try to troll and the universe trolls you.
Oh man, I think that happened to Diamond too, right?
Mm-hmm. This is funny. This is two rapid fire instances of the mainstream still not getting it. He regrets calling Bitcoin a fraud, but Damone still isn't interested in it. So he's conceded it's not a fraud, but no interest in making money. Doesn't sound like a rational banker to me. And then, oh my God, Brian Kelly. What the hell were you thinking? Like, what in the actual hell were you thinking? Like, Jesus Christ.
He was thinking he bought in at 30 cents or something, I guess.
I love how he ends with, and it's just that easy. It's like he's literally doing an infomercial for Ripple on fast money. It couldn't be any worse.
All right, you see, you just take out your wallet, you open your wallet, and you take the cash out, and just light it on fire.
He's got Polo on
It's just that
CNBC.
easy.
Yeah, he actually does a trade. He doesn't just like talk about it. He literally does a trade right now for I think it was a substantial amount of money to buy XRP, and then he ends it with, "See, it's just that easy, instant."
Jesus Christ. This is why Polo got rid of the fucking news box. I mean the troll box. It wasn't any of the bullshit they gave. It was so they could be on CNBC.
Well, I think this is why we're getting a lot of pissed off Bitcoiners. You're seeing stuff like this, like on CNBC, they're trading on Polo and everything. It's just like it does feel weird. Like I haven't watched the mainstream, and just to see them trading on Polo on CNBC, it feels weird looking at it.
And did you see the lower third there? They took it off, but it said crypto class. So class is in session, ladies. Let's learn how to buy some XRP.
Yeah, that's 24,000 XRP.
Come listen to your central authority on crypto.
What is that now? A little more than 100 grand? Like Jesus Christ. Like he literally, like he might as well have just explained to people how to light their money on fire. He seriously might as well have.
Totally. I mean, it's not like he just bought a little bit too. That's a subtle message. Like, yeah, Brian Kelly will drop $100,000 on Ripple right now. It can't be too bad.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. That's, I don't know. It's just like, I think it's just like really apparent just how scammy the market is. You know, that guy was given some backdoor Ripple and or some this token, this XRP token that he's buying that nobody's using except to speculate. And yeah, it just feels like, I don't know. He had to get approached about it, and just like these proof of italics and the tweet, you know, the tweet about this ICO daily bullshit we see from John McAfee. It's just, it's the culture right now. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, but is what it is. And
My
I
guardian
guess
actually asked me if I had bought any Ripple. They don't know that, you know, they know that I'm a software person, right? And they're like, "Hey, have you heard of this amazing thing?" And I mean, that's when I'm like, that's the definition of a craze, right? When like the average random person probably never bought a stock in their life, right? But they've bought some Ripple. It's really bad news.
Yeah, definitely so. It was one of the first things somebody asked me about at the last meetup was, have you heard about Ripple? I was like, yeah, let me tell you about it.
it's a trap.
About what it came down to. You're right.
But bad Shinobi segue. Other traps. Apparently, this shenanigans in China is not shenanigans. I mean, BTC is pretty much closing down cloud mining contracts, and personally, I don't see any real reason for that other than like some substantial reality to this pressure nudge to kind of get rid of miners in China.
Well, I think just to absolutely, like, you know, capture them, make sure that they're, you know, paying electricity bills and such is really the thing right there. And I imagine a lot of these guys, you know, they're going to see if they can get cheaper energy elsewhere. And I don't know, either which way, I think we've seen a lot of, you know, stuff out of China about that, but it's going to help decentralize that mining. We've seen, you know, some recent news with Quebec, lots of mining facilities coming online there. So it's going to be, it's just a great thing, really. I mean, like, it's kind of like just busting it down, but it's really just breaking it up.
Yeah, I love the hyper Bitcoinization alert.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, Francis also kind of breaks down the relative size of a farm in electrical terms, and I mean, for a target of 5,000 megawatts to crypto mining, with this kind of breakdown about how much a farm takes, you know, like 50 being gigantic. That's yeah.
4 million S9s. 4 million S9s.
I think Canada might have a lot of room for any miners feeling alienated in China right about now.
Definitely so. I want to go up there, maybe start applying for jobs.
Work in a mining farm. I just hope you don't have a fear of droning loud noises. But something else I think is pretty baller. Yeah. Other news from mining in Canada. So a mining farm that is actually using the waste heat to heat pretty much a garden and a fish farm. So yeah, this is epic as fuck. Like, not only are they making money mining, but they're actually using that to generate food profitably and kind of tie two businesses to the same, like, electrical, I guess, heat source. I mean, this is fucking awesome. This is showing how, I mean, like, think about this. Like, just this kind of sustainable, like, fish farm where you just have, like, the byproducts of a garden feeding that, and just kind of the byproducts of the fish fertilizing the garden, and just as efficiently as possible using this to tie that into generating or using the waste heat generated by mining. Like, that's going to really start distorting the existing markets and really make people rethink how they're utilizing the energy they have. Because, I mean, like, anything needing heat, can that work with mining?
Yeah, I mean, like we saw those little shacks where they set up, you know, to vent that excess heat as a heater for the shack, and yeah, I think it's great. It'll be because you know, I still see that argument about Bitcoin's just wasting energy. Here's how much energy Bitcoin is wasting, and yeah, I don't know, the energy waste argument is so stupid because just how many TVs in hospitals are showing CNN, and everybody's just looking at their phone anyway, and if you ask me, I think that it's really just like absolutely procuring the most amount of value possible from that energy spent. And now you can see like it's producing other things that are valuable. So hopefully it'll start to change that narrative a little bit.
Yeah, I think, I mean, you got to keep in mind that this is electrical energy, right? So if you're heating up something significant with electrical energy, yeah, you could insert miners in between that and essentially have like a zero cost for your mining electricity. But I think that's probably not super common. I don't know, but I don't think in general electrical energy is as cheap as, you know, other forms of energy. You know, if you had to boil 7,000 gallons of water, you probably wouldn't want to wrap a coil in it. You'd probably want to fire up some propane or something. So you got to keep that in mind. But other than that, yeah, it is cool that we can take we can get a lot of efficiencies when we're using electrical energy to heat stuff up by
yeah. But I mean, like, think about that from a different angle though, JW. If you can profitably mine already, well, then you just get all of that heat to put to another purpose for free, pretty much.
Yeah. Either way, you either get your mining electricity for free or you get your heat energy for free, but it has to be electrical energy. And there's obviously costs in getting that set up, right? Like that's an engineering. I don't know what you're using your electrical heat energy for, but there's going to be some engineering work in figuring out how to do that and put miners in between. And there's an investment in the mining hardware, and mining is a cut-throat business. So it's not that there's zero cost there, but I bet we will see some pretty crazy, interesting applications of that you know, reality.
Well, I mean, think about it. It's like it's an extra margin to mining. Like if your margins start getting tighter, but you're still getting this heat output, how cost effectively can you take that and apply that to profit in some other area to kind of just keep the whole net operation functioning and profitable?
Yeah, I'm not saying that there's not opportunity there, but obviously the opportunity is not infinite and there's some costs associated with it, or we would see that happening now.
Damn it, JW, wax cyberpunk sci-fi with me.
But wait, guys, don't you know that the cheapest source of electricity is to like go to college and use your dorm to mine Bitcoin and Ether and stuff? Like, it's not like you have to pay 35 grand to even get into a building like that. I mean, it's just free electricity.
It's probably the most value you'll ever get out of that.
It's true. I was like, I don't know. I haven't heard that spoken that much, but I heard about some kids mining, and yeah, it's one of those things where, hey, you know, making some income until they catch you.
Yeah, because like there was a story in Quartz magazine, I think earlier this week or something, or last week, and it's like they always say, oh, they're taking advantage of the free electricity, and it's like, what? First of all, these are not new stories. Like there have been stories coming out pretty much every year for the past, I'd say 5 years. You'll probably find one 5 years ago that talks about a student mining Bitcoin in his dorm. But it's like, I don't know what kind of like, are these journalists who all got scholarships to go to college? Because the average student is paying for tuition, which includes usually the cost of staying in the dorm. It's not free electricity. Maybe it's cheap electricity, but it's not free. I would not consider a college dorm room to be the greatest opportunity to get access to free electricity. I find it so stupid because like it makes you almost feel bad for these kids because you realize like while they're, you know, paying thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a year to get this education, quote, they're basically trying to survive by mining cryptocurrencies in their spare time in the background in order to afford this. Like, that's insane. That shouldn't be something that it's like, it's not a great investment opportunity, or like they're being entrepreneurial, but only in the sense that they're doing it to survive. It's not because they've actually found a good situation.
I do the mining, you do the math.
I think that, hey, you're right. But like you're saying, they're going there and they're getting this piece of paper that's supposed to serve them in this society that's been built up, and you're told, go get an education, you'll get a job and all that. And, it probably will be the more profitable thing. And like, in a lot of these guys that did that, as far as like, what you earned from mining Bitcoin at your time in college towards, what you're earning in your job. I don't know. That's kind of arguable, but like, I saw something recently about how it's like Bitcoin is like a system created by young people because the old system wasn't meant for us. And I think that, hey, what they're doing right now is just a part of the evolution of this changeover. And yeah, smart students doing that, honestly.
Props, roast beef. He's a fucking beast. Finished his fucking degree and then churned through LND like it was lunch.
Yeah, mad props to that guy for sure. Roast beef.
All right, I think we got one last thing that Janine wanted to make a comment on, but sadly, I haven't had time to go in depth. I don't think she has, so we'll probably dig a little deeper into it on Thursday.
Yeah, so it's not breaking news necessarily because they actually published this on January 4th, but I didn't see it until today. I mean, you've probably seen on the show, we've talked about how Bitfury is expanding its mining operations into the US, and we kind of celebrated that because it's like, ooh, more decentralization for mining. But also keep in mind that Bitfury was one of the companies who signed the NYA agreement saying they would give technical a review of the SegWit2x code, and they did not do that. Oops. And so, I mean, I think we should keep in mind that when we're saying like this is good for decentralization, we should also keep in mind that these are still companies who have done some shitty stuff in the past. And like, apparently the Bitcoin Cash people have been going around on Twitter saying they've been pointing at Bitfury saying this is an example of a small block company. It's like, hey, look, this small blocker group is doing the surveillance thing. It's like, wait a second. When did Bitfury become a small block company? I don't really remember that because as far as I know, when Alex Petrov, who is a Bitfury employee, when he was at Breaking Bitcoin, he was very subtly implying that possibly Bitfury would be pulling out of SegWit2x, but they still didn't have enough courage to say we're pulling out. So as late when was Breaking Bitcoin? I think that was September. So as late as September, they weren't even, indicating whether they were still going to be part of the agreement. But yeah, so this article, which we're not going to get into too much, but I want to make a statement because there's something very stupid in the first paragraph if you scroll down a bit more. They've basically detailed a new solution to help reveal relationships between Bitcoin addresses that minimizes errors in data, ensures greater accuracy in linking Bitcoin addresses for criminal investigations, while also showing Bitcoin users ways to protect their privacy. So Bitfury, you're not going to be able to spin this as we are improving user privacy if you have literal partnerships with the US Department of Justice, okay? The fact that you have found a way to destroy user privacy and you are apparently going to show how that was done, that doesn't mean that your motives are in favor of user privacy. In fact, it means they're in the opposite favor, because if your motive was to improve user privacy, you would have gone to developers and worked with them first to find a solution to fix that privacy problem. Instead, you went to law enforcement and said, here's a tool, because the problem with your model is that if you actually end up helping law enforcement, you can't exactly help user privacy, can you? So I'm very disappointed in this news because it's another company that has, surprise, surprise, the ones that signed up for SegWit2x actually don't have user interests in their interests. So that's disappointing, but also not surprising.
I actually have a comment I want to vocalize instead of just highlight things in the background. The Blockchain Alliance. This is something that's existed, if I recall right, since like 2015. And if anybody follows Keon Rodriguez on Twitter, he's been calling them out from day one. This is the explicit mission of the foundation: to provide a forum for open dialogue between industry and law enforcement and regulatory agencies in order to help combat criminal activity on the blockchain. There's Bitfury. There's most of the big exchanges. Bitfinex, so Bitstamp, Blockchain Info is even on there as just a wallet.
BitGo, I was just saying maybe they're not so bad. And then I see this. Come on, Lop. Get out of there, man. Get out. Get out.
Circle, Kraken, Ripple. And one thing I'd like to point out, Scry. You know that blockchain analysis company owned by Block, cough Jeff Garzik, that totally doesn't do analytics or anything. He just bought them for some unexplained reason right here as an industry partner with the Blockchain Alliance. Now, I myself use some of these companies, but I really don't have any choices at the moment. Any company on this page that is part of this alliance, I mean, if you can't get around using them, it is what it is. But don't forget that they're
BitGo, Bitfinex. They're on the list. Pay attention.
But don't forget what the mission statement of this alliance they're all part of is. Because that's not something you should lose the context of in this space in the long term. And yeah, Tim Avery, yes. Yes, that was Zcash. I know. It's pretty hilarious.
Yes.
But don't you know Zuko wants to make it he wants to make it so that it's not private enough for criminals, but it's private for everyone else. Zuko's plan. Zuko's vision.
Seems like the fundamental problem is who gets to decide who's a criminal.
Yeah, I think that's where it comes down to. I mean, like this KYC argument and trying to stop criminal activity. It's really like it's all like kind of after the fact, right? Like it's like once you do the criminal activity, then they're going to prosecute you for it. I don't know how I feel about it, honestly.
Well, it's just, any company in this alliance is potentially at the end of the day an enemy of Bitcoin, because they've already shown that they're willing to take part in this alliance that's explicitly just to try to apply the same way of handling finance from the legacy world onto Bitcoin. And that is just not compatible in the long term with what Bitcoin is or what it's going to do.
Yeah, only thing that I'm thinking is like, one of the things that kind of has helped Bitcoin in the past in 2017 is this like, kind of steering away from like, criminals using Bitcoin and criminals getting caught with Bitcoin. It's like, it's one of the things that I think has kind of helped regular people kind of come into it, is like that little bit of like, okay, well, if the system's monitoring it, then I'm comfortable with it type deal.
Yeah, but if criminals don't want to use your money, then nobody's going to want to use your money. So we need to make money that is just even better than $100 bills. And when you do that, obviously, it's not going to be traceable. So that's what we got to do. We can't have our cake and eat it too in this case.
Yeah, because I mean, the only way that Zuko's idea is going to get implemented, where you have a system where it's traceable for criminals but completely private for everyone else, the way you do that is you make a permission system, and you only invite the criminals, or you only trace the people that you think are criminals. Oops, wait, that's the banking system, and oops, wait, we still get criminals. In fact, the majority of people using the banking system to its full extent are mostly criminals. Oops.
Totally. Yeah. The big criminals, they use JP Morgan to launder their money.
It's true, but it's like, I'm just thinking about those regular mom and pops. They don't even see those white collar crimes as crimes. They live with them. 2008 happened, and Occupy happened, and it was just shit on. So, I mean, unless they see what they see as crime being busted, I don't see them gaining that trust.
Well, that's all right. I mean, they'll figure it out eventually. There's better ways to do law enforcement than have some small group of criminals know everything that you buy and sell all the time, and have complete power over your whole economic life. It turns out we can find murderers starting at the scene of the crime and working our way back, and we actually did that a lot better. If you look at the data, we solved a lot more murders by percentage in the 70s than we do now. And obviously we have a lot more financial surveillance now. So the things that people actually care about wanting to have solved, we don't put much effort into that anyway, but if we did, we wouldn't need to know everybody's checking account in order to do it.
Yeah. There's I don't know. It's a lot of back and forth on KYC and government and just trying to regulate it and everything. And I agree with y'all. Like, we want to make the best money possible. I just know that past year, that's kind of something where it's sort of like shaked off that stigma. So I don't know. I'm kind of like torn about it a little bit.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
So I guess anybody got any final thoughts for the day?
Banana.
Free lop. Hashtag free lop.
Yeah, I like the free lop. Yeah.
We are a banana. If you like bananas, you can do the thumbs up. If you don't like bananas, then I guess we won't see you on Thursday. Later, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.